Showtime.
Oh, very nice, Chris. I know our friend, our last week's guest co-host, Philip J. Curtis, tries to be here exactly on time so he can hear the beer opening. He
Does
has
he?
an alarm on his phone for the show, and I was so honored. And he did the honors last week. He opened, I believe, hey,
There he is.
Philippe! He opened ginger ale and ginger wine, and he made sort of a beautiful like cocktail together with the two. And
Wow, really?
yeah, so cool.
Ginger wine. Well, I'm just glad he didn't have the pickle beer.
We need to try this pickle beer, this notorious pickle beer.
I don't know. I'm not sure we do need to try that, but
I do. I
okay.
must.
Well, you're very brave. You're the Crane Lake person, and
I like, I mean, it was good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, but I have some strange things on here. You know it. Today I've got the Ruby Grapefruit White Claw,
that
which
White
is
Claw
pretty
is
yummy.
White
It's not
Claw
too
is I see those White Claws everywhere. They're very popular.
They are very popular, and I was kind of resisting jumping on the bandwagon, but it was just too tasty. It's legit. The pickle beer will arrive. I asked a friend of mine. Philip is getting it for us, Chris.
Oh my gosh. Sarah Sleeper's here. Hello. Mom is here.
Mom is here.
Mom
Sarah
and
Sleeper's
Dad.
here.
Who is the guy with the beard? That's a very good question, Philip. I know people were tuning in expecting to see your handsome visage. Here I am.
we
Sorry.
had a fabulous time last week. It was so great to have hang out with Philip. Of course, Pete Duval was incredible with his new book, and Anton Yarkolev just incredible as well. It was a great time, and we had some comments. It was just such a special treat to get to see you singing in that video,
Oh,
and people are excited to hear the scoop on Hollywood, Chris.
yeah. Well, they are?
Yeah, of course they are.
Well, I had a great time. I had a great time on the movie set. It was just a lot of fun. That's all I can say. I mean, there's just a lot of boring downtime on movie sets, but it was so fascinating to see everything and to see this thing come alive.
It is so incredible.
And see, there's all these people. All these people doing their thing. They're doing their jobs. They're camera people and lights people and electrician people and sound people and actor people and producer people. And they had like a COVID person, and they had people making food, and they had people driving trucks, and all these people.
All these things happening for this movie.
It was amazing, and hanging out with all of them and having fun and talking to people and hobnobbing.
Name drop those actors, Chris. Okay, so now let me just remind people for those who don't know, and I think everybody knows in here, but this is for the film adaptation of Chris's book Shriver, and we could not be more excited. And Chris was out there for a week, and he has a cameo playing a song in one of the scenes. And yes, name drop those actors. Please proceed.
There's a lot of very good actors in the movie. I wasn't there with all of them because I was only on the set for a few days, but Michael Shannon plays Shriver.
Mm-hmm.
So me and Michael were hanging.
Oh my God!
We were hanging. Yes, we were. We were drinking some beers.
Nice.
And, having a good old time. He's an interesting fellow, and Kate Hudson is in there. We weren't hanging. She doesn't really hang, but she was nice. She was nice to me anyway. And but there's all kinds of other great people that
Zach
Braff, Don Johnson,
crazy.
Emmett Walsh, classic character actor. Just all kinds of folks. Divine Joy, Randolph. Some really cool people, and there's some people I can't remember now. But anyway.
Well, everybody needs to get
Chat.
on your Instagram and also the Instagram of Shriver Movie and start following that and getting excited and liking all the photos, obviously.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff on there. So check them out. Pictures from the set. And there you go. That's right. And I did it. You know, I nailed my scene.
Oh,
I nailed it.
Fabulous.
They call me One Take Belden.
No, really? Wow.
No.
Well, you know what? I expected no less, Chris.
No, they don't call me that, but but I did okay. I'm just hoping I don't end up on the cutting room floor. But hey, if I do.
Oh, no, of course not. No.
People were happy with it, and it was a lot of fun.
We're gonna need to have like a FUMFA community movie screening when the time comes. You know, can't wait for that.
We should gotta like project it onto a big screen out on the side of a building or something. Anyway.
I was thinking on the side of the chapel at Sanders Island. No. Well, it's officially 8 o'clock, and we need to officially welcome you all to FUMFA 50. This is our 50th live stream, which is very exciting.
Wow, we get like we're members of AARP now.
I know. And we're so excited to have with us tonight DeLano, a fellow FUMFA writer and community member. We're so excited to have her. And we have a special guest playwright and poet, Matthew Garland, and he will be presenting a short, I believe a short play or a segment of a play with some actors tonight. So that will be another special treat. Around 8:30. So we are looking forward to all of that. But Chris, tell us what's coming up next week and soon.
Well, next week we have a couple of FUMFA folks, as we like to say. Kastner, FUMFA alum, who started her own publishing company, Running Wild Press. She'll be joining us she's been on before to discuss publishing, but she'll be on here to read some of her own work. We're excited about that. Along with Jen Sage Robeson, who is a current FUMFA person and also a fabulous teacher.
Ooh.
And then, so we're excited about that. That's next week. And then the following week, we have Kate Gray, who's a wonderful writer, along with Sharbari Ahmed from the faculty.
Nice.
And then after that we have 2 weeks. Well, we have 2 shows devoted to the Fairfield Book Prize finalists: Rebecca Dimian, Mike Belanger, Victoria Buitron, Ryan Stovall, Sam Keller. And in between those 2 shows, we're going to have a little vacay.
Yeah.
So anyway, all that is coming up. So I mean, it's just the hits.
Amazing. You gotta just keep on coming on Sunday nights. We have incredible writers with their books and new manuscripts to share, and it's just always a great time. Just always a good time. And I need to give a shout out to Joanna Myers, who is in our audience today. She was our first person to present a multi-reader production on here for part of her screenplay, and she's saying, "Congrats! I had a little acceptance. I have a poem accepted to Collateral." So I'm very excited about that. And one of my best friends in the whole world, Megan Chalik, that is Matt's wife, Megan, my dear friend. So giving her a shout out right now.
Right on.
Yes, well, but we are getting close to 8:05. So you know what? Chris, would you do the honors of reading Dare's bio for us?
I will.
Thank you. All right. So, let me get Dare up here.
Let's get Dare up there because I have a question for her. Where is she?
Here she is.
Dare, now see, I want to say DeLano because that sounds
DeLano.
I didn't hear it.
It's DeLano.
Okay. I just want to say DeLano because it sounds French or something.
Everyone say it that way. It's DeLano, but that's okay. However,
no, that's great. I just want to make sure.
Thank you.
Because we get some names and then I usually screw them up.
No.
Yeah. We had a guy named Jones on there and I screwed it up. Okay.
He's
I
joking.
find a way. Dare
He likes
DeLano.
to be precise.
Dare DeLano received her MFA in creative writing from Fairfield University in 2019. Huzzah! Her novel Abilene, which is currently out and about, being represented by Jennifer Thompson of Nordley Set Literary Agency. And any minute now, I'm sure there's going to be some good news coming in about that. It was shortlisted as a finalist for the Faulkner Wisdom Creative Writing Competition. Her children's book, Otis and the Long Way Home, won the San Diego Book Award in 2014. Her work has been published in A Year in Ink anthology, San Diego Writers, Inc., and has been exhibited in the San Diego Central Library's local author exhibition. She teaches creative writing to high school students and will be teaching at the University of California, San Diego Extension Program this spring while she continues to work on her second novel. Are you in San Diego right this minute?
Yes, I am.
How is it?
It's good. It's funny. It's still light outside. It's probably dark for you guys where you are at nighttime, but it's lovely.
It is getting there.
And it's perfect there, right?
It's always perfect here.
Yeah, I know. It's really depressing. But anyway.
No. Well, welcome, Dare. We are so excited to hear you read.
Thank you. Thank you. Should I just get started?
Go for it.
Okay. Well, hi, everybody. I want to start by saying thank you to Katie and Chris for hosting these readings. I'm really thankful to be part of this FUMFA community. And these readings have been one of the highlights of this past year in quarantine, at least for me. So I'm very happy to be here tonight. What I'd like to do is read a little bit from my completed novel, Abilene, and then also a little bit from my current novel in progress. So any of you who have workshopped with me before, you know I really love to include a bit of magic in whatever story I'm telling. And I don't mean fantasy or Harry Potter type magic. I mean more along the lines of magical realism. I hesitate to use that term for my own work because I feel like it creates a whole host of expectations. So I really just think of it as sprinkling a little bit of magic into my stories and my characters. So I'm going to start by reading from Abilene. I'm very lucky to have an agent representing this novel, but it's been on submission to editors for what seems like eons. So I guess we'll just see what happens. The story is set in Abilene, Texas. It's about a 12-year-old girl, Len, who is a bit gifted. She's the one in the story with a touch of magic. And she has a vision and believes that the father she's never known is actually an up-and-coming country music star with the stage name Clifton Wilkes. And she convinces her mother to set off on a road trip to find him. There are some other storylines in the novel, but that's the main one, is Len's search for her father. So I'm just going to start at the beginning with chapter 1. Moonchild, Granny called me, for I was born when the moon was full in a flat ranch house in Abilene, Texas. Granny always said that on account of that moon, I would move with the rhythm of nature, that my intuition was strong, and that I would know about the insides of people, see things in my head before others watched them happen in the world. She stroked my hair and taught me songs with no words. We'd sit out on the screened porch before supper, shucking corn and shelling butter beans, the wind wrapped around us like a blanket. She'd tell me stories about her cousin Dweezil, who could speak in tongues and heal people just by touching them. Granny'd stare right at me, squint her eyes, and say, "You got the gift, honey, I can tell." And as I looked at her strong, wrinkled face and watched her strip an ear of corn clean in 3 sharp tugs, I believed her with my whole heart. And I knew in my bones she was right, for often, with the first wind of morning, I can feel how the day is going to go. There's a sizzle, a sort of pop that comes with the wind, and with it, I feel the long, strange cry of a wolf, or the glorious scream of an eagle circling. I know that someday that wind will bring me word of my daddy. It's not just wishful thinking. I'm certain of it. For although I've never seen him, I know his face like it's a part of me, memorized from the only picture I have of him. Not a nice framed picture on the mantle like at some people's houses. I've got a dog-eared piece of a Polaroid, almost 13 years old, that I keep in my underwear drawer. For as long as I can remember, I've been waiting for that day, waiting for word of my daddy to come to me so that big empty space inside of me will be filled. And I keep waiting. By the time I turn 12 years old, I'm mighty impatient. Okay, so I'm just going to skip forward a little bit and read you part of a chapter that comes later in the novel. Just to give it some context, Len I mentioned she believes her father is this country singer, Clifton Wilkes. Her mother has denied it, but Len is convinced. And this excerpt is when Len listens to his music for the first time. I gingerly slide the record out from the sleeve and carry it over to my record player. It's warm in my hands, and I can feel it already singing out to me. I can feel it pulsing through my fingertips. My hands shake just a little as I place it on the turntable. The needle sputters. At the sound of the guitar, my heart feels more steady in my chest. When the piano joins it, I can feel my breath, feel the air as it comes into my lungs and fills them. My whole body is tense, anticipating the next moment. And when it happens, when I hear his voice, it's familiar and at the same time foreign and beautiful, a sound I've been waiting for my whole life. I don't really even hear the words, just the sound, just the melody, and it begins to merge with the song inside of me that has been there waiting for such a long time. When the song ends, Rachel raises her eyebrows. "It's good," she says. The next song comes on. I nod, but my throat is tight and I can't actually bring myself to say anything in response. By the third song, Lucas appears in the doorway. "What are you listening to?" he asks. I show him the album cover. I don't mention anything about who Clifton is, and he nods, sits on my floor, and listens with us. By the time the last song finishes, Ma stands in the doorway, her arms crossed and her brow furrowed, staring at the record player. The needle runs its course, and there's an empty, scratchy sound until I reach over and replace it. Ma still stares at the record player. "Guys, I'd like to talk to Len for a moment, if you don't mind." They slowly scatter. Ma comes over and sits beside me on the bed. She reaches out for the album cover, and I hand it to her. She stares at it a long time, her lips pressed together. "Okay, Len, I have to tell you something." I still feel the music deep inside of me. It's like that album is replaying again, right in the place where I breathe. "You're right. This is your father." She runs a hand over the photo on the cover of the album, the chiseled profile topped with a cowboy hat. "Yeah, I kind of figured that already." "I sure wasn't looking for a Clifton Wilkes all this time." "Yeah, I figured that part too." "Well, I have to think about what to do here, Len. There are things that make this situation complicated. I'll have to give it all some thought." "Well, I don't," I say. "I've been giving this situation some thought for my whole entire life. I don't have to think about it anymore. We just need to go and find him. He doesn't even know I exist." "I'm afraid it might not be that easy, honey." I feel a pang in my chest, a tightening. I know she's right, but I also know that doesn't mean I need to listen to her. Because I've not forgotten that part where Ma said I was a mistake. And I wonder, as she pats my shoulder and leaves the room, if that might be partly why she doesn't want to contact him. I wonder if she just doesn't want him to know about this mistake. Okay, so the next bit I want to read you is a small chapter from Granny's point of view, Lenora's grandmother. This is the last bit of Abilene that I'm going to read. But Granny's a central figure in the story, and much of the magic that's in the novel stems from her. So this is going back in time before Len was born. Granny had not always answered to Granny. Before that, she had been Mrs. Walker. And many years before that, she was Lorelei. But there was a time even before that, a time when she had no name. She'd grown up in the backcountry, where her feet sank in the deep mud of the riverbank while she learned to fish. Her feet in the black earth, squishing, hiding in the willows. She learned to feel through the mud for the sound of the fox or the rabbit so that there would be meat. Her pa taught her to catch rabbits with a snare set with lettuce and vinegar. They'd skin the rabbit and gut it and cook it over an open flame. But she liked the porcupines better. The skinning was more difficult, but the meat was fatty and flavorful, and she could sleep all night without the pangs of hunger waking her. She hadn't learned the sounds of the English language, and for this, people on the few occasions they saw her thought her slow. She heard the sounds around her on those rare walks to town with her parents, but she had no one to teach her what they meant. And so she learned to rely on something deeper, something inside that could speak to the willows, to the ripples in the pond, and the wind as it lifted the wings of an osprey, stretching out its talons. It was not until her mother made the 12th mark on the doorway of the old farmhouse that she was taught the meaning of words. For it was shortly after that the prim woman with the notebook and the man with large hands had come to take her away. She hadn't known what was happening, only that Pa had not come home for 2 days, and her mother sat on the rocking chair, rocking back and forth and back and forth. Even when Lorelei placed a bowl of rabbit stew in her hands and made the signs, telling her to eat it, she had only stared dully ahead of her, her eyes blank. That was the last image she had of her mother, because she would not get out of the chair when the strangers came for her. She would not look at them or try to convey any meaning with her hands, as she sometimes did. But Lorelei would forever remember the cry her mother had uttered as Lorelei left with the strangers. It was low and long and animal. The pain inside it so palpable it was alive. It followed her out the door and to the car, something she'd never been close to before in her life. Lorelei kept that cry with her, inside of her, as the car rumbled to life, her knuckles white as she gripped the seat. She kept it inside of her as they moved, dreamlike, down the lane with mulberry trees she knew every branch of, and onto the paved road that led to town. And in her head, she echoed her mother's cry, note for note. Now, Granny used some of those half-words, some of the sounds her mother had taught her long ago. They'd slept within her for these many years, as she grew accustomed to the ways of other people. Her own husband had never even known of the life before, so adept had she been in her camouflage. But she awakened these sounds now, as her daughter lay sleeping. Cora slept soundly, breathing deep, even breaths. She lay on her side, her belly sticking out toward Granny, making it easy for her to hold the amulet over the largest part, while she whispered the rhythmic sounds. She pictured the boy, young man, she reminded herself, with his easy smile, his bashful brown eyes, and she felt so deeply his love for Cora. She knew it had been there, in the room with them, palpable and present. She didn't know where he was or what had happened, but she felt that love and longing and put it all into the little seed that grew in her daughter's womb. This baby would be a beacon, a siren call that could not be ignored. She would keep the despair, the darkness at bay. This baby would bring her own father home. Okay, so that's Abilene, a little snippet for you. And now I'd actually just like to share a little bit of my novel in progress. And I'm not quite sure how to describe it, so I will just say it's a little bit of a love story and a little bit of a mystery. It involves a graduate student from Mexico whose arms become temporarily paralyzed when he's bitten by an exotic spider. And when he finds that after that, he has suddenly has empathic abilities, he becomes drawn into solving a missing persons case. And my working title for the novel is An Absence of Arms. I'm not sure if I said, but it's his arms that are temporarily paralyzed. So it's an absence of arms. Okay, and again, I'm just going to jump in with chapter 1, the beginning. Javier Nunez still walked with a limp. Not all the time, for it would come upon him suddenly, when the wind blew from the east, when the moon began to wax, or when he was overcome with a terrible sadness. And it would leave him just as suddenly, so that anyone who saw him at the time would scratch their heads and wonder why he was faking. It came to him now, his limp, as he walked away from the fruit stand. As always, it reminded him of his home, of the summer flu that had nearly killed him. He had lain for weeks on the porch, his mother compulsively fanning him with broad banana leaves and forcing him to drink a strong, putrid-smelling tea the housekeeper swore by. And when finally his fever broke and his eyes unclouded, when he stood up to walk, his limp was so pronounced they thought he had broken a bone. It had lessened over the years until it became only occasional. Javier knew why it was with him now. It was because Christina had not been there today, smiling down at him from her seat beside the register. In her absence, the fruit at the stand seemed dry and shriveled, and the guavas had lost their smell. And with his sadness, he could feel the familiar pain return to him. "Where's Christina today?" he had asked the old man behind the counter, trying to sound casual. The old man shrugged and lifted one hand up in a question mark. "No sé." And so the light had gone out of Javier's day. "Will she be here tomorrow?" But he had received the same answer. So he did not buy a dragon fruit or even a mango. He simply turned and limped back up the road to the bus stop that would take him back to campus. The next time he saw her, he vowed to himself, he would speak. And on the very next day, he was to make good on his vow. It was mid-afternoon, hot and dusty, and as he approached the fruit stand, he brushed the dust from his pant legs, took a deep breath, and straightened his back. She was behind the counter and looked up, smiling faintly as he entered. He was struck again by her beauty. Her hair, black and shiny, looked still wet from a wash. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "Good afternoon," he said finally. He wandered around, pretending to look at the various fruits. She came out from behind the counter, and he watched as she ran her hands through her dark curls, shaking the wet ends out. The smell of her shampoo wafted over to him in the heavy air, so sweet and intimate he had to look down for a moment. "Can I help you find anything?" she asked. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. Then he forced himself to say, "Chayote?" She smiled and pointed to a bin holding the pear-shaped fruits he knew so well from home. He fingered them, turning one over in his hand as he remembered the market stalls in his hometown. Much later, he would wonder if it was fate, or if perhaps some mysterious or unconscious force called him to pick up that particular piece of fruit. For as he held it and turned it over slowly, he felt a sharp sting at the base of his pinky finger, so sharp that he called out in surprise and pain. That was when he saw it. The spider was not large, but its vibrant colors of green and orange stood out against its back legs. He dropped the fruit and shook his hand. There was a funny feeling creeping through his arm as if it had fallen asleep. He opened and closed his fist a few times, hoping to rid himself of the feeling, but it only increased. He walked forward a few steps, but his legs were becoming wobbly, and there was a sharp pain in his stomach that made him double over. His arms grew heavier and heavier until he could no longer move them at all and became difficult to breathe. Hey, are you okay?" He heard her from a long way away, through a long tunnel, perhaps through a swimming pool, for the light seemed to dance in front of his eyes, and all of a sudden, he was looking only at the sky. "Oh my gosh, are you all right?" He saw her now, peering over him, her brow furrowed, her eyes wide. He could not see clearly. He could barely remember where he was or what he was doing, but he heard Christina's voice, and he knew her. There were so many things he wanted to tell her. He wanted to tell her of the beauty of the sun rising over the mountains in the small town he grew up in, of the smell of the air there, sweet with gardenia blossoms in the spring, and the smell of his mother's cooking, the air heavy with chilies and fresh tortillas while she prepared the evening meal. But he found, alas, he could not move. He couldn't open his mouth to tell her these things or anything else. He could only blink. He heard her then, on the phone, her voice shaky. I don't know. One minute he was standing there, and the next he just sort of crumpled. But he's awake, his eyes are open and everything. He just doesn't move. He felt her, rather than saw her, sitting beside him. And when she reached out and tentatively put her hand on his arm, He felt the warmth of it seep through to his core. "It's okay," she said to him gently. "Don't worry. The ambulance will be here soon." It wasn't long before he heard the sirens, and soon after that, the men poked and prodded him and put him on a stretcher, machines beeping and radios spitting static. As they carried him and hoisted him up into the ambulance, he heard one of the men say to Christina, "You can ride here in the back with us." "Oh, but I didn't, or you can just follow in your own car if you'd rather." Okay, no, that's all right. Let me just put this closed sign out." It was getting harder to breathe, and there was now a funny little gurgling noise in Javier's throat, but he tried to stay calm. He wished he could tell them about the spider. It would probably help them to know, but there was nothing he could do about that at the moment, so he concentrated on taking the air into his lungs and letting it out gently. Soon there was a mask placed over his nose and mouth, and slowly the whole world around him went fuzzy and slipped farther and farther away. Okay, I just want to read one little last snippet. It's not even a chapter. It's a short little snippet from the same novel, and this is from Christina's perspective. It was Christina who dreamed of the orange tree. Her grandfather had bought the plot of land as an investment decades ago. When the highway came through, the city had taken the land. It seemed so un-American, but there it was. They paid her grandfather, of course. They offered to buy the entire parcel, but he insisted on keeping a small sliver of land the city didn't need for the highway. His decision made no sense. It had no value at all, a barren strip of dirt. Her grandfather had taken Christina there when she was 15. They were just starting to build the freeway, and he brought folding chairs and a cooler of beer. She sat beside him, smelling the pungent smoke from his hand-rolled cigars and the exhaust and dust from the road work, and watched for the afternoon. And as she sat, she relaxed. She felt no one would find her here. It was an escape from the rest of the world. Her school, her friends and their petty concerns, her parents who could never see anything that happened, and Mr. Hench. She could hide here. It was that night she had the dream. She saw it in her mind. The tree starting as a seedling and growing in the middle of a patch of bare, dry dirt. It was moonlight in her dream, and she sang to the tree, a soft, sad song that came to her from nowhere and that she could not remember afterward. And as she sang, it grew taller and broader until it stood straight and strong and bursting with oranges. And the next weekend, when she and grandfather packed up the chairs and the cooler and headed out to the patch of dust, there it was, providing shade for them while they watched the work. Each time after that, Christina brought, in addition to the chairs and the cooler, her mother's gardening box. And as her grandfather watched the backhoe and the steamroller as if he were watching a football game, Christina turned the earth. She didn't wear gloves, for she found comfort in the soil. Taking the dry, brittle dirt in her hands and turning it over was like kneading dough, and she found that in her hands it became moist and rich. She hummed, it didn't matter the song, a snippet of a hymn from church, or something that played on the radio on the drive over. But when she sang, the plot before her began to teem with small green shoots of grass, earthworms, and ladybugs. By the time the stretch of freeway facing grandfather's plot of land was complete, the small strip of dirt was a small oasis amidst the dirt and concrete. There were so many things she could not speak of, so many things she had to work to keep inside of her. It was exhausting, the constant vigilance. But when she tilled the earth, when she turned over the soil with her hands, there was solace there, a connection and comfort she felt deep within her. It was the same sort of comfort she felt when she happened upon something delicious. The soft pillows of fresh pasta her aunt on her Italian side would make when she came to visit, the rich, gooey chocolate cookies her mother would bake if she were feeling up to it on a Sunday, and even the warm tortilla slathered with butter and sprinkled with salt that she would make for herself when she woke in the night and could not sleep for watching the bedroom door. Okay, that's all I have for you guys tonight. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Dare. Yay!
Brava!
Gorgeous imagery, especially at the end, and I love the little bit of magic sprinkled throughout each one.
Yes.
And surrealism, and I was feeling the spider bite.
Oh God, that's terrifying.
Yes.
I do have a quick question though. Were you ever tempted to call it A Farewell to Arms?
That's a good working title too. Yeah, it's just a working title. So maybe I'll try that one.
I don't think anybody's used that, so go for it.
It might need to be that now. Well, Dare, we have, friends watching on Facebook, also on YouTube. So later tonight, you'll have to go back and see people's comments and everything. But we thank you so much for your reading. And everybody stay tuned, because we're going to have, of course, Matthew Garland next, and then a Q&A, and Dare will be back for that. So thank you so much again, Dare.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Chris, it's time for us to bring up Matthew Garland. So I'm calling him Matt because he's a friend of mine. But let's get him up here for his bio. Hi, Matt. Matthew.
Hello.
Matthew Garland.
Hello.
Now that he's on screen, you call him Matthew.
I will. Of course I will. Well, let's introduce Matthew. I will go ahead and read his bio, full of amazing credits. Matthew Garland's acting credits include Quanah Poet Players.
Quanah Power Players, yep.
Yes. Suburban Holidays 3, 4, 5, and 6, and A Midsummer Night's Dream, Theater to Go, Arsenic and Old Lace, and 12th Night, New England School of Performing Arts, The Breakfast Club, and The Bard Brigade, The Tempest, The Merchant of Venice, and Macbeth. At Revolutionary Theater, Shakespeare Academy, Still Small Theater's Repertory Company, for How I Met Our Father, and The Diary of Perpetua. His directing credits include Enchanted April for Theater to Go Inc., Almost Maine, and It's a Wonderful Life for Theater Company of Saugus, Godspell for Sherwood Entertainment, Side by Side by Sondheim. For playwright credits include Online Dating, which is a one-act play. Ooh. And Curtain Call, which is a full-length play, at Acting Out Company in Lawrence. How Do You Know, which is a one-act play, at River's Edge Arts Alliance Woods, full-length play, at Theater at First. And A Christmas Gift, which is a one-act play, and A Christmas Carol, a radio play. Oh my goodness, Matt! I knew you did a theater, but this is incredible. Theater Company of Saugus and Love in the Snow, Stories for Christmas at Walpole Footlighters. His composer credits include Almost Maine for Theater Company of Saugus, Macbeth, and Much Ado About Nothing for the Bard Brigade, Enchanted April for Theater to Go. His author credits include Woods, Curtain Call, and The Oscar Goes To, and Just Get Over It, which is self-published. Also available on Amazon.com in Kindle, paperback, and large print. He currently hosts his own podcast, Everything You Never Needed to Know About Movies, Music, and Theater, and is the creator, writer, and plays Jim Henry of The Movie Critics, a web series. You can find both on Anchor, Spotify, and every place else you get your podcasts. I hope I read all of that clearly, Matt. That was a lot of amazing stuff.
Well, since my time is now gone, I guess I need my actors.
Good night, everybody.
Take an extra few minutes if you need to.
No, that's fine.
All right. Thank you so much, Matthew. We are so excited to have you. I will bring up your actors and leave you to it.
All right. Thank you so much. This is a wonderful thing to do. So the play that we are going to be reading is And the Oscar Goes To. The play is about two estranged brothers who find an Oscar within the within their dearly departed mother's items as they're going through the stuff. And so it's about what happens with that. It's also about what happens when you go home after being gone for so long. So we're going to read the first act of the play. My wonderful actors, Andrew Quinney playing Stephen, Jamie Hennessy playing Melissa, Amy Cole is playing Ruth / the mother, And then Keegan Hannon is playing Ted, who is the brother. And I personally am going to be reading two of the characters, a pastor that comes to talk to Stephen about stuff, and I will also be reading the part of Jimmy as well, who's a neighbor friend. So we'll get right to it. So Act 1. Stage opens on a porch of an old colonial house. There are 3 rocking chairs on the right side. A door is found upstage to the left. There is an oak tree about the property. It's a split level with the balcony on the next level above the porch. The door is a screen door. Ruth enters and sits on a chair. She is wearing an apron and takes it off before sitting down. Stephen wipes his hands with a towel as he enters.
Thank you, Ruth, for helping clean up.
Oh, it was nothing, Stephen.
No, seriously, thank you for all your help these last 3 days.
Hey, don't thank me. Thank your mom. She was family to me and obviously to you. She went out of her way for me all the time. The least I could do to help you is to clean the place out.
I just can't believe she's gone.
Yeah. Sepsis is a bitch.
Yeah. I just can't believe I didn't come over when I felt something.
You felt something?
Yes. That night, I had this thought I should go over and check on her.
What did your wife say?
She wasn't there.
Why not?
Well, if you must know, we got a divorce.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Your mom didn't tell me.
I didn't tell her.
You didn't?
Well, she seemed not to have been feeling good for a few weeks, so I didn't want to burden her. Anyway, Tuesday, I was supposed to, or I wanted to check on her, but I was too tired. We just signed the papers the previous week, so I stayed home. And I just had the feeling the next day. I came to find her on the ground, unconscious, so I called the paramedics. They took her to the hospital room, and she said, just like that, oh my God. She was only 75.
Well, you did all you could. I know for a fact. She never took her medication sometimes.
Why not?
Made her drowsy. She wanted to be awake for things. She was happy to be alive. Boy, she loved it. Loved life. And she loved you and your brother.
Oh, yeah. Ted.
Yeah. He didn't come around much.
Barely once a year, on her birthday. When I left, I barely... Oh. He just left when I arrived. I barely got to talk to him.
You should let him know about this.
I've already tried.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, God knows how many messages I've sent him, and even if he got the messages.
She was a good lady. Quite an old dame. More than my best friend. She was a sister to me. So that makes me an aunt to you.
Well, if you're an aunt to me, I never got a birthday card.
You need anything else?
No. Thank you, Ruth.
The pastor enters with a binder. Mr. Holmes. Oh, Miss Lewis. How are you doing today?
Oh, good. Just tidying up a little bit.
Place has been a mess of late.
Oh, I believe it.
Stephen's done a good job.
I'm sure he has. If it's okay, I need to talk about funeral plans.
Oh, well, I'm good to head on the old dusty trail.
Ruth hands Stephen the apron.
Thank you again, Ruth.
Anything you need, you just ask.
You bet.
See you on Sunday, Father. I'll see if I got a $5 for you.
Bless you, my child. Ruth exits. Pastor and Stephen sit down in the rocking chairs. Well, how are you holding up, my son?
I'm doing, well, yep, I'm doing. That's about it.
I can imagine it's a tough road.
Well, she was my mother.
And quite a lady. She used to come to the food pantries, volunteer for hours. Most people did an hour slot, then leave. Not her. She was against leaving before she thought she had to. She used to read to the blind, would give all the characters voices, so it felt like an old radio play. She was a big part of this community. I always said she should have run for mayor. She would have won in a landslide, but she didn't want to do anything with politics. She would say, I'm too good for politics. I do think she was, but God knows she would have done it well.
That's interesting. I never knew how much she did for the city. I mean, I knew she was popular.
Always. She could light up the room the minute she walked into it.
Yeah, so she could.
So I think a big funeral is at hand.
No, please, no. Something small. I said something.
She was big in the community. We should celebrate her. We could get the mayor to make it her day officially on the funeral day.
Oh, I don't know if that's necessary.
Oh, yes, it is. And a big funeral procession in town, and then a reception down at Tremblay's on Lafayette Street.
No. Father. All I want is a wake tomorrow night, and then a small service, funeral, and burial on Sunday at Monahan's. That's it. I don't need a procession thing in town or a reception at Nate Trembley's, and I don't need her to get her own national day. I just need to get some peace. I really need some peace and quiet to say goodbye to my mom. I've been very busy with my own stuff. I haven't even gotten to visit her as much as I wanted to. I just want something quiet for my mother. Is that okay?
That's fine, my son. But we will still have the reception at Nate Tremblay's.
Why?
He owes me a favor.
Fine. That's fine.
All right, then.
I got to finish cleaning out her house.
You're doing her proud.
Yeah. Well, I would have done her proud if I was there with her when she passed. She went by herself, alone, on the floor.
But she's at peace now. Anyway, 6 to 9 good for you for the wake?
Yes, that's fine.
And should I be expecting your brother?
Not unless pigs can really fly.
Hang in there, my son. You're a good son. Trust me.
How do you know?
Because one good son knows another one. The pastor exits. Stephen sits for a second as Mary as a ghost enters and hovers over him as the scene changes to a flashback.
Stephen.
Mom?
Stephen, please, just listen.
Mother, I know what you're going to say.
Well, aren't you the smart one?
Oh, Mom, I'm very smart.
Okay, you say that, but you aren't doing something that isn't very smart.
I'm just saying you should take your medicine like you're supposed to.
And now you are talking to like other people.
Mom!
Stephen, I know how to take my medication.
But you don't.
Wasn't your brother supposed to come over today?
He's always supposed to come over today.
Why can't you two get it together?
Why can't you realize we can't get it together?
You two should get along and rely on each other more. When I'm gone, you're all you two got.
That won't happen. Because you're going to outlive me.
Ugh, what a depressing concept.
You just need to take your medication.
There you go again.
Mom!
Where's that bride of yours?
She's at home.
Shouldn't Didn't she want to come for a visit? She
Oh, it's
didn't want
nothing.
to come?
Oh, no, it's nothing personal. She's got a cold.
The same one she had last month.
Mom!
I don't think she likes me.
She likes you fine, Mom.
Well, it's okay, because I don't care much for her either.
Mom!
Now, why couldn't you marry someone like that wonderful Melissa girl?
Ted dated Melissa, not me.
Well, you could have changed that with 3 words.
And they are?
I love you. I can't live without you. I need you, my darling.
Okay, that's more than 3 words.
Oh, you know what I mean.
I'm sure I don't.
Listen to Mother. Mother knows best.
Yes, Mom.
Give your brother my love.
Why? I can't even give him mine.
You two need each other.
The mother starts to fade.
Are you okay?
I just need a nap. I'm going to lie down.
But you okay?
There you go again, saying those silly things. I'm fine, and I know how to take my medication. Now, once more, you should marry that girl.
Melissa?
The flashback ends and Stephen is back in the present as Mary disappears and Melissa enters.
Hey, Stephen, is that you?
Melissa? How are you doing?
Great. I mean, I heard about your mom and I was just taking a walk to see the old neighborhood.
Where are you living now?
A new apartment complex down on Thompson Street.
What? I thought you lived down Burlington Street.
Couldn't keep it after the divorce.
A divorce?
Yeah. 2 years divorced. He liked the chase, just not the win. We haven't seen much of you lately.
Oh, well, I got a lot is going on. That's why I haven't been able to visit. I regret I have not being home when she passed.
What do you mean?
She was alone here when she went. She was all by herself. She was making pasta and tea, and she just went, and no one was with her.
Well, most people are by themselves.
I was supposed to visit, but something came up and I couldn't get out of it. So I told her I would see her next week. And if I was there, maybe I would have called 911 and got her to the hospital. And she'd still be alive, and I wouldn't have to worry about funerals and processions and cleaning out her goddamn house.
I take it you haven't heard from Ted?
Not in many years. Oh, sorry. Saw him a few years back, but didn't say much to him.
Well, why don't I help you?
Wait, no, you don't have to.
Yes, trust me. She was wonderful to me too. She treated me like a daughter, even more so than my own parents. Let me help you.
It's my burden for you.
It's a privilege for me.
No, I mean, there's so much here, and
Please, let me help you. I owe you that much.
You don't owe me anything.
Yes, I do. Let me help.
I don't know what to say.
There's nothing to say. It's all settled. I'll go change into some old clothes and be right back.
Melissa exits.
What does she owe me?
Jimmy enters with a tennis racket.
Jimmy, where are you going with that racket?
Jimmy gets startled and uses his racket like a sword. Who are you? Who are you?
Jimmy, it's me, Stephen.
Stephen?
Stephen Holmes?
Stephen. By George, it's great to see you. It's been ages. How are you doing? How's your mom?
Well, I don't know if you've heard. She's dead.
Well, she has been walking a lot. Is she taking a nap?
Yeah, she passed 2 days ago.
Past? Past what? My house? Everyone does. It's the one on the corner over there.
No, she died.
Oh my! Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I just saw her 2 days ago.
Well, she died 2 days ago. Jimmy, it's okay. Jimmy, calm down.
I knew her so well. She was your mom, and she was wonderful, and she was your mom, man.
Yes, she was.
Oh, I'm gonna help you.
Oh no, that's not necessary.
It is. It is Nessa. I know what's Nessa, and this is Nessa.
It's not. There's not much here, and hopefully Ted shows up at some point.
Oh, Ted? Yes, your brother.
Oh, sure. Remember him.
Well,
it's okay. You were best friends, so I can imagine you'd remember him. It's fine. He just hasn't shown up yet, and I figured he would. Look, I appreciate your offer to help, but I should be able to handle this on my own. Understand?
100%. But let me know if you need any kind of help.
Yes, Jimmy, I will.
She was a dynamite lady.
Oh, yes, she was.
Who are we talking about?
My mother!
Oh, a dynamite lady.
You just said that.
Said what?
She was a dynamite lady.
Who?
My mom!
Oh, she was a dynamite.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to work. I will see you later.
All right. See you later, George.
Oh.
Stephen walks by and watches him go like he's about to say something, but lets him go. Stephen goes into the house as a motorcycle is heard in the distance. Then it comes from the right side. Ted is on the bike looking like he's right out of the movie Grease. He stops and turns off the motorcycle and turns around and takes his sunglasses off. Stephen enters holding a box from the house.
What the hell is this?
Long time... No, a long time...
Steven. I didn't think it'd actually show.
Oh, anything from Mom? Now let me look at you. Oh, you've gained some weight.
Yeah, I missed you too.
No, I'm serious. Just a brotherly concern, but you are getting wide around the old belly, little buddy.
Oh, brotherly concern?
Just concerned you might be getting type 2 diabetes.
Since when have you been concerned? We haven't seen each other in years.
Well, I wrote.
You wrote?
Yeah.
When did you write?
At some point.
When?
Well, there was a point where I wrote a letter and sent it. It was me who wrote it, and me who was sending it. There was a letter being written. It was written and sent, and it was me who was writing it and sending it.
There was no letter, and you know it.
You know me.
No, I wish I really did.
Oh, God, not this again.
Hey, you left right when I was looking at you.
Please, let's not do this again. I'm home. Deal with it.
Yeah, why are you here?
Excuse me? My mother died, and I loved her, and I am her firstborn. Can I help you?
Didn't seem it.
What does that mean?
Where have you been?
What?
Where have you been? You haven't visited in years. I've been watching out for our mother all this time. I visited her. I cared for her. I have been here.
Then why is she dead?
I couldn't get here the night she died.
Why weren't you there?
Unimportant.
Too busy having fun with your wife?
That's none of your business.
A romantic night.
No, she left me.
Really? Yeah, she'll come back.
We are divorced.
All right, look, yes, I haven't been here, but I'm here to help you now to plan things.
No. Don't worry. I got it.
All right, well, when are things?
Don't worry about it.
Well, I can at least help you clean out the house.
I got this.
No. It's a big house. You're gonna need my help. I mean, half this stuff's mine anyways.
Ted, trust me. He'll quit after an hour.
Nah, there's plenty of decisions to be made. Like what's this?
Ted points at a box that Stephen opens it and begins to go through things.
I don't know. Actually,
You haven't gone through it yet?
yeah, no, you see, I've been kind of busy.
Oh, you're always busy, and God forbid you're asked to do anything reasonable for 2 seconds.
Stephen pulls out an Oscar.
What the?
What the what?
It's an Oscar.
Yeah, I see that.
It's a lead actress Oscar.
Yeah, I can read.
I mean, this is a real random thing to have among all this stuff.
Some families have war medals. Our family has an Oscar.
And it's not even in her name.
Oh, I mean, it's not.
No! I mean, look at it. It's not... the name on it, it says Marilyn London.
Well, that's odd.
Do you know about this?
No, I don't. But this seems like something people would give a lot of money for.
No! Why don't you peace out now?
That's an Oscar in my midst. I can't peace out while we have an Oscar in our grasp.
Well, I don't know what to do with it.
Exactly! We can figure it out together. And by that, I mean we can sell it. And I am very good at selling old, useless shit.
Wait, Ted!
Is my old room still there?
Well, yeah, you know Mom. She never changed anything.
Then it's all set.
Wait!
No, I'll stay here. It's going to be cheaper than a hotel.
Ted!
Ah, brothers under the same house. Like old times, I guess.
No, wait, Ted! Ted! Oh, great!
That is the end of Act 1. Thank you so much, and thank you to my wonderful actors, Andrew, Keegan, Amy, and Jamie.
Woo! Oh, that was so much fun. I was feeling all emotional, and then you guys got me laughing a lot. I was just laughing.
I know. I want to see what happens next. It's making
I
me crazy.
know. Oh, what a cliffhanger! That was so much fun. Thank you so much, actors.
Yes. Take a bow.
Yes. The audience on Facebook and YouTube is applauding, and of course, if any of your friends or family fans weren't able to make it to the live stream, of course they can go and see it on Facebook Live, on our page, and also on YouTube. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you.
How absolutely delightful! I need to know what happens next. I gotta know.
You'll have to read the book.
I will. I have to. We'll have you guys come back and do the next few acts. All right. Well, we're gonna bring up Dare. It is time for our Q&A. Oh my goodness. Okay. And just I'm still like laughing from the end of it was so much fun. You know, I've seen I think I mentioned to you, like Matt and his wife Megan we're friends, and I've been to barbecues with Quinny, who played Steven, and I never knew. How delightful. Okay, anyways, let's give another round of applause for Dare DeLano. Yay!
It's Nessa. It's Nessa. We got to applaud.
Oh yes.
I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to be in the same live stream with Dare. That was amazing.
Thank you. And of course, to Matthew Garland, our playwright and actor of the night. Woo!
Yeah.
So everybody needs to start putting some questions in there. Joanna Myers, Chris, Joanna sent in a question earlier.
Yes, she did.
Yes, towards the end of Dare's reading. We'll have to scroll back up and grab it. But, while you're typing in your questions and while we're grabbing Joanna's question from earlier, I'm going to go ahead and ask our authors kind of what's become our first question. How has it been this last year for you? I guess, we have a typical schedule of things that has been just totally turned on its head this last year. How has your writing practice maybe changed? How has performing and reading and sharing your work changed? Have there been any silver linings?
Also, with a twist here, because, Matthew's writing theater.
Right.
Involves, ideally anyway, performance to an audience. And, we can write novels and poems and stories and what have you and get them out there during a pandemic. It's not easy, but we can still do it. Whereas, writing a play, it's a little trickier this past year. But anyway, how's it been?
Well, for the purposes of this, I will ladies first, of course. So Dare can
go for it.
I was raised correctly.
Well, so for me, I mean, in terms of personally, I've been very lucky in that I haven't had a massive impact, financially, or no one in my family has had health issues related to the pandemic. So I've been very lucky in that regard. In terms of my writing, I found that for much of 2020, it was really hard for me to focus on my literary work. And for me, I think it was mostly because, when I write a novel, as so many of us do, I really try to tell a story that resonates emotionally with the reader. For me, that's always the main goal, is to have the reader be moved emotionally. And during 2020, I mean, there was so much going on, political and social issues, that was so deeply emotional and disturbing. And I just felt there was this daily assault on me emotionally.
Yes.
It was exhausting. So it's really hard to pick up from that and then try to do something, create something yourself that's going to be even more emotionally exhausting. So for me, maybe it's a silver lining, maybe it's just how I dealt with it. I actually switched and worked on something that was completely escapism for me. I'm writing, and I'm actually almost finished with the first draft now. It's actually a young adult or middle grade fantasy. There's a bit of a time travel element. It's historical fiction. So it was just pure escapism for me, and it was really fun to write, and I didn't have to think about the current world or anything in it. I was just kind of immersed in something different. So for me, that was how. And now that things are changing a little bit, I feel like I'm able to get back into work, and I'm really excited to, once I finish this middle grade novel, I'm going to turn back to my other work.
Great.
So you're absolutely correct. Plays and theaters are written to be spoken by actors and by people watching. It's almost like music in that way, that you can write a really nice composition and then you can sit there and go, oh, this sounds good based on what I'm reading, but you really need to get out there and perform it. And to add to the COVID, the pandemic, my wife also had given birth almost 18 months ago. And so we got quarantined right in the middle of my son growing up, which I'd already planned to take a break from theater at the same time. So it was kind of fortuitous. And in terms of what we were doing, I mean, a lot of this stuff kind of came up in the last year. Before pandemic, a couple of my plays had been done live on theater, but then it was just me taking them and doing them as kind of, I know someone had posted, this would be a good audiobook. I was doing them as audio plays kind of on the podcast, just to have something to get out there. The two podcasts that are in my bio, Everything You Never Need to Know About Movies, Music, and Theater, and The Movie Critics, basically came out of me at home, like sitting there going, well, I'm not really writing anything, so let me write something. And what was really amazing that happened was that theaters, because they were closed and they still wanted to do theater, and they were doing them over Zoom and things like
Yeah.
live streams, they were realizing they couldn't they didn't have enough money to buy the rights for like popular things, so they were coming to young playwrights. And
Hey.
so within the past year, I started getting a lot of commissions and a lot of interest in
That's
my
so great.
stuff, and slowly coming around to everything. So I think that's kind of how I've stayed busy with everything.
Silver lining.
Absolutely silver lining.
Honestly, with everything pandemic and COVID, that's the worst things that have happened. There are two amazing things that have occurred. Number one, I've been able to see my son during very formative years, growing up, seeing him walk and all that kind of stuff. Actually, I'd put a third one in. The second one would be to spending time with my wife and
Yes,
having
Megan.
close time. And then the third thing would be to actually being able to write and have people want to read my stuff and see my stuff. So I really I have to be grateful for all those things, and obviously for my I call her my saintly and ever patient wife for allowing me some time away from helping with the boy to do these things. So yeah.
Thank you, Megan, my dear, dear friend. Well, that's just fabulous. And each of our writers that have come on here, they've shared some similar thoughts. But more often than not, we find that though it's been a hard time and a different time and a huge adjustment, that there have been these little silver linings in the midst of it, and that's really exciting. I mean, this live stream is a silver lining for Chris and I, and it's just been the biggest treat. And now we're at what 50 live streams, and we've gotten to spend so much great time with our friends, and gotten to know such great authors and writers. And yes, I love that audiobook quality to it. I think that was Philip J. Curtis that mentioned that. It just sounded so great.
I could see it. I could hear it, obviously, but then you hear it and you picture it. If the writing is good and the acting is good, you can see it too.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, I've got that question from Joanna Myers. I scrolled all the way up.
Aren't you adventurous?
I will. Chris, can you read this question for Dare?
There. I'm going to add a little bit to it. Can you please share your wisdom on fiction submissions to any literary journals? And I will add literary agencies. Yeah. And which ones do you recommend for current for students? Or how do you go about it? What's your advice? Not just for journals, but because you mentioned your book is out there. You have an agent representing it out there, which is the first hurdle, and that's a big one.
Right. So yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate it. I can't really speak to submissions to journals because I sort of have bypassed that. I know a lot of people use that as a first step, submitting stories or chapters of a novel to literary journals. I actually haven't done that. I have had for many years a really demanding day job, so I had to just focus on just writing my novel and worrying about that. So I'm sorry, I don't have any advice about literary journals, but I can tell you a little bit about an agent search, and I could talk for a long, long time about that, but I won't. I'll just give you the really kind of short snippet and a little bit about my experience. I recommend when you're ready, and the very first step is don't submit until you're ready. Make sure you've had your work reviewed and workshopped and all that stuff. I'm sure if you're going through that MFA program, if you've been through it, you would do that anyway. But what I found the best way to do my submissions was to do a small batch of agents at a time. And there's a resource. You can get a big master book that lists all these literary agents, but in the age of Google, I think it's just as easy to find them through Google.
Mm-hmm.
And, figure out what your genre is and make sure that you read that agent's, webpage and make sure that they're representing the type of work, because you don't want to send out, 80 queries when you're only 20 of those represent the kind of work that you do. So target submissions. What I did is I sent small batches. So I made a really long list of agents. I sent out about 5 queries at a time. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to make sure the query letter was resonating. And if you don't get any hits, any responses, any requests for pages, you can tweak those opening, if you're sending the query letter and opening pages, you can tweak those as you go along for the next batch. So that's kind of, initially, again, there's lots to say about finding an agent, but those are my little secrets of wisdom from what I
No,
learned.
that's great advice. And, I tell people also, the books that you like and that are similar to yours often will have in the acknowledgments,
Yes.
the writer will thank their agent. And so if it's, you love this particular book and you say that,
Yeah.
and say, well, and then you have your opening line too, you represent so-and-so who, I'm a big fan of, and this is right up your alley, etc.
That's right. And I also have found that I think it's really, if you're starting out, this is your first agent you're getting, newer agents tend to be building their lists of authors. So
Right.
I've had more luck with agents who are just starting out. The agent that I have right now, she's been in publishing for over 20 years, but she was president of Pegasus Books, I think, or Perseus Books, I'm sorry. And so she and her partner started a new agency, and so they were in the process of building up their list. So, it helped to have that, somebody who's really actively looking, so.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dare. That's so interesting and so important. And I think it's so good for people to get ideas and encouragement related to that process. I'm so outside of that in the world of poetry because it's just so different. It's so much more hands-on in terms of just like sending stuff out there and, and participating in different kinds of things.
But
But
big bucks when you're a poet. So.
Well, we make the big. Did you say we make the big bucks? Yes. No, and it should be that way. I wish I did make the big bucks, but I love it. I love it so much, and it's so cool. That's such valuable info. Speaking of this kind of thing, let me ask you, Matt. So I have maybe a double question here. What came first for you, acting or play writing? You must have been a fan.
I mean, if we're going way back, it was acting. I used to do like at the North Shore Music Theater, they had like a Broadway kids like summer vacation thing that you do. So I did that for a couple years, and I fell in love with acting. And then I started seeing shows more often with my mom, and that was when I started falling in love with the process of writing. And I wrote my first full-length play when I was 14 or 15, and it was terrible. It was terrible, but it was the start of everything. And so then it was a matter of reading a million plays, slowly learning how to do it and how to get better. And, I went to school. I took writing as like a secondary thing because, parents were footing the bill. So they wanted me to get something more realistic. We said,
bringing in the big bucks, like Chris said.
Yeah, I'm loaded. Of course I am. But it just kept building and building, and then constructive feedback. So so acting came first. I think theater came first, and then writing came pretty soon afterwards. It was not too long after. And I've been writing poems since I was like, I used to write poems in school, and it would be like an assignment. It'd be like, write a poem about spring or something. So I'd sit down, 10 minutes later, it'd be done. And my mother would be like, you didn't finish that play. And I said, I totally did. And she'd read it and she'd be in tears. And I'm like, Jesus, I can do pretty good with this stuff.
Yeah.
And most of the time I get like extra credit because I did something like that. Not all the time, but that was the way I kind of used it. So, yeah.
That is so cool, Matt. That's so cool to know about your history like that. I think, many of us have a similar kind of story. Like we have this point in our childhood or, tween or teen years where writing comes to us as an outlet, or maybe we were readers and we feel very, very inspired, and we know that this is going to carry us in the rest of our lives in some kind of way. And that's so cool to hear your story. Speaking of which, Dare, how did you know that you were a writer? Were you, as a child, a big reader, and you knew you wanted to write your own stories with kind of some magical realism?
Well, I was always a big reader, and yeah, I probably as a youngster, I gravitated towards Chronicles of Narnia and those sorts of things that had some elements of magic in there. I never thought about writing. I was always a strong writer, but I never really sat down and said I want to write a novel until I was already through law school. I was starting out as a lawyer, and then I decided, okay, on the side, on my spare time, I think I'm going to write a novel.
Wow,
that's incredible.
Yeah, well, that was about 20 years ago. And what I realized, I thought, how hard can this be, right? I was an English major. I can write a novel. So I just, wrote what I thought was a novel and got to the end of it and realized it was horrible. It had no plot. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I realized, I think I actually need to learn about the craft of writing, because things like prose and characters always came more easily to me, but I had no idea how to plot a novel. I just had no idea.
Right.
So,
was it
interesting? Yeah.
No, I was just say, was it a legal story? Or which is completely different?
No, it's completely different. I've always kept my lawyer life very separate from my creative writing life. But actually, the first novel that I started writing was, I hate to call it Abilene because it's completely different, but it was Abilene. And it was horrible. I got to the end and I put it away in a drawer for a really long time and learned. And then I wrote a few other novels, a couple of us are still in other desk drawers. But once I learned how to, plot a novel, I went back and worked on Abilene again. And then just a shout out to Karen Osborne.
Karen!
Karen helped me so much. I had actually completed the novel and it was with my agent. I had gotten the agent before I came into the program. But then at some point decided I wanted to do a rewrite because we weren't getting, the responses that we wanted. And Karen helped me, she took that thing and just really worked overtime with me on it to whip it into shape. So
I could see that.
Yeah. Wonderful. That is so cool, Dare. And that just makes me think of a question for Matt. Matt, when you're writing plays, do you have a workshop process with fellow playwright friends or your actors, or how do you share that when you're in the process of writing?
So it's always, so the process is very interesting. I always start with what is this story about? Very kind of similar to what Dare was talking about, in the sense of, I love writing musical dialogue. I'll just say my heroes for the most part are Neil Simon, Moss Hart, and George S. Kaufman, and Aaron Sorkin. Those are my big writing inspirations. You can hear Aaron Sorkin in a lot of what I do. And I always loved the sound of dialogue, and also creating character relationships within dialogue. So I was always very good at that, but I never knew the next step to keep forward. So I always plot everything out, kind of like you were saying, with an outline, almost to the point where I'm like, act 1, scene 1, here's what's going to happen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you do all the hard work first, and then you are able to then do the fun time. The hardest part ends up being that
the planning.
Well, not even the planning, but whether or not I think I may think it's good, but then when it gets into the actors' when the actor starts speaking them, I might be completely wrong and it sounds completely not great and what have you. So it ends up being like, oh, I need to rewrite and fix things and all that. Actors don't usually see it until it's probably, I'd say, fourth or fifth draft. I go through 4 or 5 full drafts until an actor will read it. And same thing with my playwright friends and colleagues and stuff. I don't let anyone see it until I know I'm ready. The only person,
really good. Yeah.
the only person I think that sees it in its infancy, or I talk about it in my infancy, is usually Megan. I pop ideas to her, and she'll either say, "Yeah, that works," or "Nah, that might not. That's interesting, but I think you have to rethink it." And so that's kind of how it ends up being. And so it goes through a long process. I don't write fast as much as I wish I could. I write, like this play itself took about 3 years. From
we get that here. Things take their time, don't they?
and I really need to, so like Dare just did, I really need to say, like, so the idea of this play, this concept, was actually Andrew Quinney. Andrew Quinney came with me with the idea, and he said, "I'm not a playwright. I'm giving this idea to you, and if you can write it, figure it out." And it took me a year just to think about it and come up with an outline, and then it took another year to write the full play, and then it took another year for it to actually be good. And part of that was also my friends, obviously Megan, but also Jackie Fryman and Amelia Smith, who were very good at expanding the mother part of it, because the mother in the original bit was only in the last act, and I wanted to add her more, and so they gave me a couple ideas about that, and also the actors recently. So yeah, so it's a long process, and I'm completely open. There's some playwrights who are like, "No, this is how I wrote it. This is perfect. Don't mess with this." And I'm the complete opposite. I'm like, I want your input. I want the actors to like the material I'm spending all this time giving.
What are your insights?
Yeah, I want your insights. And a lot of times actors have amazing insights for that. So
of course, yeah. I mean, they have to say those words, and it's, if they're not feeling it,
exactly,
it's not going to work.
That is so cool, that particular aspect of it, because we have so many different writers that hang out with us and share on our live stream, and poets, fiction writers, nonfiction, and whenever we have a playwright or screenwriter, that aspect of someone else will be reading this and performing this, and how does that affect the writing and the editing of it? That is so cool and so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. And here's a question from your wife, Matt, for Dare.
Yeah, it's not for you. Not for me. It's not for me.
She knows everything about you. Yes, Dare, your name is very unique. What is the story behind it? And she also noticed that your characters' names are also unique.
Great question, Megan.
So I'm named, it's a family name. It was a last name in my family. And for those of you from the South, if you've ever been to Dare County in North Carolina, you know it's a family name from the South. And Virginia Dare was the first white person born in what is now the U.S. That's kind of where the name comes from. It was a last name.
Wow. Interesting.
Which I think there's a Virginia Dare wine somewhere in the South, but that's where the name is from.
And your character names, and I would like to address this to both of you, because obviously character names are important for any writer, whether you're writing a novel or a play. So, like, where do you get those names? Like, how do they come to you? Do you search for them? Do they just pop into your head? Do you open the phone book?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I don't know how it is for you, Matt. For me, most of the names just kind of come to me. And in fact, usually when I have an idea for a novel, a new novel that I want to work on, usually it's the main character that pops into my head first prior to the plot. It's usually the character that comes to me, and often with their name. But then often as I'm writing and I'm adding new characters, I won't know the name, and I'll put in a working name, or sometimes I'll literally just put a blank or an X until I figure out what that name fits. And I had one of the novel characters in my novel, Cora, Len's mother, Cora. I had her, I think she was named Caroline for a long time, and it just didn't seem to fit. And then finally I found the name Cora, and it just seemed to
Right.
fit her better. So
Got to feel right.
yeah.
How about you, Matt?
If I'm writing an adaptation or a like kind of docudrama, which I've written, I just written a play about Michael Eisner and the Disney company during the 80s and the 90s, during the Disney Renaissance, and when Disney really became the greedy empire. I love adaptations and real life things because I don't have to think of names. I can't stand thinking of names, to be honest with you. And the only times that like it's an obvious name is if like I put myself in the character. So if it's called not usually Matt, usually Mark. For some reason I like the name Mark. So if Mark is in there, for the most part, it's either saying things that I'm
It represents you.
thinking. Well, it's either saying the things I'm saying in the moment, like even in the moment of like if it's two characters yelling at each other and you're like, what, why are we doing this? This is silly. Otherwise it sometimes it's thrown in a hat. Sometimes it's what sounds good. I always go by because my dialogue is very rhythmic and musical. So if like Steven is a really good name. Steven. Mark wouldn't work during that, especially. And also Ted. Like I noticed, during the thing, people say, "Oh, Ted." Ted is a great like one syllable name. If it was like something like Bartholomew, it wouldn't work. It
wouldn't be as annoying.
It wouldn't be as annoying. And then Jimmy is just a fun little quick name. And Melissa, I've known a million Melissas, and I feel like it's just, for some reason I hear Melissa as a Boston kind of name. This because this takes place kind of on the North Shore of Boston kind of thing. So, yeah.
So one more quickie before we get to our final question. Just for Dare, did you enjoy law school as much as?
This is a loaded question, Dare.
That's a loaded question. I know how I have to answer that one. It was totally different types of experiences, and there were very different periods in my life. I went to law school, in my early 20s, and I then waited many years and just did my MFA more recently. So I can without a doubt say I've enjoyed my MFA program much more.
Yeah, you did.
Bing, 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 bing. Correct answer.
Correct answer.
I mean, really, the community that you find there has been really important, and it's such a wonderful thing to have.
Of course,
a sense of community is really important.
Nothing against lawyers or law school.
No. It's just
my father was a lawyer, my brother was a lawyer. And I still don't hold it against them. But anyway.
Although one of the best quotes in the entire English language is from Bill Shakespeare. First thing we do, we kill all the lawyers.
That's right.
Which has been used multiple times.
I've seen the T-shirt.
It's a good thing Dare is a teacher now.
I have finally left the law.
Well, yeah, we have a famous last question that we must ask both of you before it gets too late. And it's a double question. Chris, what's the first part of that question?
The first part of the question is just imagine a young writer, like, somebody yourself several years ago when you were first starting to write or think about writing. And what's your pearl of wisdom for that young person that you would tell them, now that you're, I don't want to say you're old, but you're older. You're older than you were, and wiser, of course. And what is that pearl of wisdom? That's part one of our question.
That's part one. And part two is a book recommendation, or, Matt, perhaps in your case, a play or a production recommendation. Whatever you'd like to share, a recommendation of something that we could read or enjoy that has been inspiring you. So a pearl of wisdom and a recommendation. Why don't we start with Dare?
There's so much good writing advice out there. So I'm going to try to add something that I haven't really seen too often in the craft books and the advice books. And that is, I think so much of the work of writing is done when you're not actually sitting at your desk and typing the words. I think it's really important to think deeply about the work that you're trying to do. and to think about those things that are either like what's a problem for you, or thinking about, you know, your plot and how to increase the narrative tension, thinking about your characters and their backstory, and getting to know them better, thinking about how to build the scenes that you're working on for the greatest emotional impact to the reader. All those things are things that you have to kind of really, really think deeply about and have settled before you sit down to write the words.
Right.
You can do that, you know, when you're out taking a walk, when you're exercising, when you're chopping vegetables for dinner,
washing the dishes.
exactly, picking up your kids for school, all those things. So I would just say use that time when you're not sitting at your desk. I mean, that's one reason I don't really believe in writer's block, because I don't think you have to be typing words to be doing work as a writer.
Yes. I so agree with you, dear. That's great.
And a book recommendation.
Oh, right, book recommendation. So I've read a couple of books recently that I would recommend. One is called Writers and Lovers by Lilly King. And it's about a writer and the grief process she's going through. And so I think it would really resonate with the fellow writers. The other is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. And yeah, it's about two identical twins who are Black, but they pass as white. And one of them ends up living and returning to her Black community as she grows older, and the other passes as white, and so much so that her own husband, who's white, doesn't know of her racial history and her community background. It's really interesting. It's very well written, so I recommend those two.
That's
awesome.
That's a big one. Matthew.
Okay.
Pearl of Wisdom.
So Pearls of Wisdom. So I have been a student of Stephen Sondheim. As much as I love the playwrights that I named, Stephen Sondheim seems to be the god in terms of even playwriting, which is the truth of it. And well, several things. First of all, God is in the details. Simple is not always easy, but it's the way to go. And content dictates form. Those are the three philosophies that people should do. The biggest thing that I love to tell, I love to tell young writers, because I have talked to a couple of them, is that you can find your own voice. It's the greatest thing you can ever do, because if you can find your own voice you will be 90% of the head of everyone else, because everyone else is sometimes mirroring or outright stealing from the best, and that may make for good counterparts or copycats, but it doesn't make for good original stuff. Find your voice, find your thing, and the way you do that, especially in theater, is by failing. It's by putting no, I'm completely honest. It's by putting something on and learning from it, because you can't learn
putting something out there and risking failure.
Yeah, you can't learn in a vacuum, and you can't learn from your friends. You can only learn by doing, by writing and doing, by writing and doing. And I fully believe that. And also, if you write in your own voice, you can never not be incorrect. You can be wrong about how you're presenting things, but you can never not be incorrect, in the sense that you have to be able to defend yourself. You have to be able to defend your work. And it's a matter of not even so much defending it. An actor will come up to you and say, well, what did you mean by this line? And if you are wishy-washy and you are like, oh, well, you have to tell them exactly what that means. You have to probably like a dare when it comes to critical analysis and critical reception. You have to be able to defend every single word, every single paragraph, every single note in your story, and you have to stand behind it. And if you don't, then there's more rewriting to be done. And I think that is the truth. I think it's a matter of, you have to be true to yourself and true to your voice. Your voice can be completely different. You could be talking about things that are very similar. Sorkin does adaptations of all kinds of events in history, but he's putting it in his own microcosm, in his own fashion, and putting it in front. And that's what you have to do. And that's how you become you're
Yeah.
original to your own original ideas, as opposed to beholden to thinking, oh, I have to sound like so and so.
Right. Or being shy or ashamed of trying or
And that
not
too.
owning what you've written.
Yeah.
Totally, Matt. Oh, a recommendation.
Book recommendation.
Book recommendations. I recommend Working on a Song, which is by Anais Mitchell, who wrote Hadestown. It is a brilliant, brilliant book that a couple friends and I have talked about on numerous times, which talks about writing lyrics for the theater, which is very important. The other book, I would say, it's a 2-volume book of annotated lyrics by Stephen Sondheim, and it teaches you not just about lyric writing, but also about playwriting. And it is called
Oh no, Google it. Somebody Google it. It's okay.
Finishing the Hat. Finishing the
Wait,
Hat.
does
and-
Chris have it? Is he grabbing
No, I have
it?
it. I have it. It's
Chris has it. Chris has it.
It's called Finishing the Hat and Look, I Made a Hat. Yes. Yeah. So those are the two. Those are two, especially for young writers. That's really what they need to read. And one last quick recommendation is Portrait of a Young Man as an Artist by James Joyce. One of the most pivotal books I've ever read in my life, and it made me feel so much less lonely when I was like 17 and I wrote it, because I was like, wow, this is really how life is, and this is the life of a writer. Regardless of if you find your love and you find a family and what have you, writing is so solitary and so lonely, but it made me feel so much less lonely in the world.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
That is so awesome, Matt. Thank you so much. What an incredible night we had. We had a fabulous reading from DeLano. Applause once again. And an incredible performance of one act, and we are dying to see more from your play, Matthew Garland. Another round of applause.
Thank you.
The Oscar goes to, and what an appropriate night for that. So,
I know.
I know.
So perfect. And anybody who wasn't able to make it tonight, we're archived on our Facebook page. It's on YouTube. They can go take a look. Matthew, Philip J. Curtis would like to grab your social media info. He is a performance poet, and so maybe he has some ideas for connecting with you.
Yeah, I am on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Facebook, you can just look up Matthew Garland. Instagram, I can never remember my handle. Really, honestly, I think you just type in Matthew Garland, and then you can probably find me that way on Twitter too. I'm not good with social media. I use it to my advantage, but I can remember.
I'm sure Philip will reach out on Facebook.
But if you need to contact me, you can type matthew.garland@gmail.com, and that's my professional email, and anyone can use that. I don't mind. Spam me. I don't care.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to get in touch with our authors this week, DeLano, Matthew Garland, you can also reach out to us and we will be happy to connect you. So everybody have a very, very good night. We will see you next Sunday for Lisa Kastner and Jennifer Sage Robinson. And have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.